Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by these great sponsors. Axon started out of a passion for keeping agriculture moving. Imagine having 100 years of tire and wheel knowledge in your back pocket the next time you sell a piece of ag equipment. To find more or become an Axon dealer, please visit axontire.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Valley Transportation. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransinc.com for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. This podcast is also brought to you by Ag Direct. No matter how you buy your ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.
Hey, what's rule number one? What's rule number one? Party. No, not party. No, it's not party.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast number 255. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. For more information, go to axontire.com. Axon Tire would like to give the loyal listeners of the Moving Iron Podcast, I think, a pretty cool deal, Aaron. You tell me what you think. You get a free digital tire pressure gauge, right? As well as a free Firestone t-shirt. What's your first reaction?
That's incredible.
I mean,
that is absolutely top notch.
That's like going to a farm show without actually going to a farm show. Is what that comes down to.
Yeah, no shit, man.
All right. So if you're
anytime you get up to t-shirt level in the swag market, that is just top notch.
That's exactly right. So if you are looking to get something like that, send an email to marketing@axontire.com, and they will send out a free digital tire pressure gauge and a Firestone t-shirt. Those come in, I think they have them in 4 sizes. They got, I guess 5. They got them in 380, 520, 650, 710, and 800. And for the cool kids out there, they got them in LSW. Right?
There you go.
Got the old low sidewall out there. So depending on your shirt size, just let them know what that is with all your details at marketing@axontire.com, and they will send that out to you. So Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Called Parker at 800-657-4910 for all your trucking needs at Valley Transportation. Our goal is to help you reach yours. And no matter how you buy ag equipment, from a dealer, an auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com. All right, Aaron, how you doing this evening, man?
I'm terrific.
It has been a roller coaster ride of a year, man. I tell you what, if you take a look at, roller coaster ride of about 3 years now. You know, if you take a look at end of 19, 20, 21, and here we are in going into 22. We're inside year number 3 of this, COVID, post-COVID, and now we're involved with all these different, supposedly coming to the tail end of these shortages and what have you. So throw the war with Ukraine and Russia into the mix, and that just kind of extrapolates things a little bit more. And it's been a wild ride when you start looking at equipment pricing. You start looking at how the new one comes in, and where's that depreciation point for the second buyer, and what's that look like? Who are those buyers? Where are those buyers at? And how do you keep the first trade guy away from buying the new one? And I think that's been a finer line to walk over the last couple of years than I think it has ever been in my time in this business. So I guess what are your thoughts on that right now?
Well, this whole that we've been dealing with this crap for 3 years now. For 3 years, there has been something to deal with. Like, come on. There's fix it. Let's roll. You know, it's like, it's getting old. It's almost going to become part of life. And then we all ate the bait, and now there you go. That's just where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thoughts on that portion. However, with your thinking on how big's that gap got to be and all that, that is a terrific thing to discuss. And as we get into the prices almost every day, every month seems to change, you know, as we're dealing with that in that world, everything's in so much fluctuation that I think that's gonna have some kind of impact on it too. But you know, it used to be, as you evaluated equipment, what would you, that 1 year old 500 hour thing, what percent back of a new one would you typically say it would have to be?
Depending on what it was, but somewhere between 15 and 20% was a pretty common number. You know, if not maybe
Right.
depending on up to 25, depending on what it was. But that first, you know, like you said, that first 500 hours are a pretty expensive depreciation point.
Right. Now, with all the availability struggles and pricing struggles and all this in the equipment business, is that gap, is that percent going to have to grow? Because we're talking $500,000 used machinery all over the place. That's the world we're in.
I think the key point of that is how soon you can have the piece of equipment that you're looking at on trade, right? If it's a year out or whatever else before you get that other piece, that's one thing. If it's available today, that's a completely another number, right? And I think you know, it's really hard to put your finger on that right now because, I mean, I've watched auctions. Well, we talked about this earlier. You know, I've watched auctions where you thought you bought something stupid and paid too much for it, and just because of what the market did, you made 9% on the following month because
Right.
of where things went, right? I think availability right now is all of everything in the used equipment guy's handbook is kind of thrown out the window right now. And if anybody can tell you that they've got it figured out as to what's happened with the market, I have a hard time believing that because it's moving from 1 month to the next month. You know, if every time the price goes up, and you have the available pieces of the equipment of new stuff, every time if new price goes up, what's available out there for used, it's going to follow right along with it. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So trying to figure out what that looks like and how you got those things pegged, we are definitely in a market of when you think that you've got it figured out, you're going to wake up the next morning and realize something crazy happened. Like, you know, we saw some steel surcharges last year that were like 30 and 40% steel surcharges on
Right.
you know, some short line stuff and some specialty stuff and those kind of things. But those same steel surcharges we saw across all the mainline manufacturers as well. They just got baked into a smaller percent, but the smaller percent was a bigger number on the other side of that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just those things you see happening there. I think as you take a look at what's happening on the big picture side of it, you really start taking a hard look at okay. My best example of this, of what I'm getting ready to talk about here, is a chopper. And a chopper's been like this for as long as I've been in this business. And the reason for that is a chopper is a very specialized piece of equipment that is, quote unquote, mass produced, right? Quote unquote, right? I don't know the number of choppers that get produced worldwide every year, but it's not very many. It's, you know, a few thousand worldwide.
Just a handful too many.
Right. Some cases that's true.
Of all makes, just take that down just a little, make the market a little hungrier.
Yeah. So if you think about it, you know, a few thousand get made across all manufacturers, right? Deere, New Holland, Krone, Kloss, who am I missing? All these different lineups that you see there. You take a look at that first, a custom guy gets the biggest, latest, and greatest, whatever, and goes out and does their thing, and they put 500 to 1,000 hours on or whatever it is, and it comes back and it's it depreciates 50%, 40%, something like that. It or 60%. I mean, it's this huge number that comes back with depreciation costs, and two reasons for that. One is it's a big machine that has a lot of parts that need to be replaced when it gets to that point. But secondly is that second market, the first buyer of the secondary marketplace, there's a certain point when they're going to jump into the market, right? And that's what you see there. I mean, you see a lot of guys that'll have might have $500,000 trade difference in the first year, and their $900,000 machine is now a $400,000 machine, and because that's where the first buyer is going to come into play at, right?
And there's something compared to all the other lines out there where that first to second is such a big damn gap, but second to third is as narrow as any other.
Oh, sure.
Machinery.
Yeah, it's
because
not
there's not a. You get to that point where the last 7980 and the first 8800 are, other than you got a huge dramatic series change in there, but you're getting to the point where the guy who's writing the check is looking both ways.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's kind of where I think in my example now, as you start looking at a more mainline piece of equipment. And you pick them, right? You pick whatever whichever machine you want right now, whether it's a 4-drive, a combine, a row crop tractor, rotary hose. That's a good example too. If you bought a rotary hoe in the last 2 years, if you bought a new one today, it costs you about 60% more than it cost you to start with.
Yeah.
But as you look at that. Well, I'm going to use 4-wheel drives as my example here today. So let's just say you go out and you get whether it's doesn't matter what it is, right? If it's a Deere 9RX 640 or a Case, what's their quad track?
620.
620. Yeah, there you go. Either one of those you get. If you get 3-point PTO, high flow pump, you get it pretty well loaded up. You get a 700.
Refrigerator.
Even get the refrigerator in the seat. And did you notice they changed on the Deers? They kind of changed where the refrigerator is on the newer ones. Instead of being under the seat, it's kind of back on top behind the buddy seat. So you don't have.
Oh yes.
More ergonomic.
It's more like dorm fridge idea now.
It's more ergonomic. But anyway, if you take a look at one of those machines and you start doing the math on that, you have a $700,000 4-wheel drive tractor, right? 2-track, even about the same, And you start doing the math on that, and you start thinking about what it is. How many guys do you have out there that are, where does that point hit? Is it if the new one's 700, 750,000, something like that? Are you starting to look at that at 650? You starting to look at that at 500? Are you starting? Where's that line pop in, and what's that look like? And that's a dance that you got to play. And right now, it's hard to make that where that place is at, because, like I said earlier, if you have a machine that's available today, it's got a different price structure than a machine that's available in a year, because no one knows what a year looks like. So you're playing the game of of guessing.
The crystal ball factor right now is just batshit insane.
Yeah,
I don't know how you even begin.
Yeah, and I think. It's hard. It's you start looking at where those lines play in, and it kind of makes you start thinking about. And we've talked about it on here. I had a setup in place until the Ukraine Russia thing kicked off, and I think that whole timeline's gotten moved farther to the right there. I mean, you start looking at 2025 now instead of 24. If they don't get a crop planted this year, and that's I've read they're not that they're not going to plant anything. There's some guys that are going to plant some stuff, but it's diesel fuel so hit and miss that you don't know what's going to go where. So it's pretty safe to say that there's no major agricultural crop exports coming out of Ukraine this year, right? Very safe bet. What does come out is going to be, not much to talk about, and it's going to have a big, huge effect on the overall marketplace right now. Especially with what's going on with Russia and how the world's kind of stacked up against them. You start looking at grain exports and those kind of things. I mean, I know they can send stuff to China and all that, but again, it's just a mess all the way around. So, you start looking at the way things are now, and you throw interest rates going up. You start talking about, the cost of just inflation is climbing still. All these different things we have going into play here. When I start looking at 2025, because that's my new number. That's my new time where I think we're going to start seeing some major issues pop up. What I mean by major issues is that we're going to have some equipment sitting on the lot. We're going to have things that are be sitting there and the way things are looking and those kind of things.
25 will be like the first inventory adjustment.
Yeah, I think that's when you'll be looking out there and you'll be like...
Or inventory realization.
Let's
call it that.
Inventory
realization,
yeah. It'll give you that opportunity when you can sit back and have the conversation with your used equipment guys and being like, you
could go door to door handing out pamphlets on the 2025 equipment realization. Inventory realization.
You could do
coming. Are you ready?
I think, to me, that's when this conversation of where's that line for the first buyer come into play. And that's going to be a tough one because, your guess is as good as mine as to what that looks like and how those things play out. But I think in 25 is that first real conversation that you have. And really that first real conversation that you kind of start having, when you start really having that conversation, to me, is midway through, starting out 24, when I would hope that by 2023, and you go through the whole year, that all the factories are back up and running and everybody's got the parts and the logistics chains are figured out. You've got, truck drivers back driving trucks and container shippers shipping containers and those kind of things, and everything's back to some level of normalcy. When the factories are back up,
they're getting shipped. It's getting unloaded is the problem.
Well, I mean that's part all of that, So when you start looking at the big picture of everything, when the factory's at 100% capacity and they're getting everything out like they're supposed to be getting out, and you're not ordering a tractor 12 months ahead of schedule, and things are showing up in 3-month period, 4-month period, 6 months, something like that. Now all of a sudden you have a different conversation that you're having with your people. You're having a conversation of okay, so everything's really kind of available now, and what's that do to pricing, and where's that price take to? I think that knocks 25 or 30% off the price pretty quick.
And that's a big adjustment because you're talking big numbers, man.
Yeah.
We're not talking $100,000 used combines.
Yeah. But this initial blow, to my opinion, I don't know that it's going to be that big of a deal, in the overall scale of everything, because if you're buying something right now, you're buying it because you need it, right? You're buying it because you have there's something there that's pushing you to do that. You're not buying it out of necessity, right? You're not buying it because or not buying it out of want necessarily. You're buying it out of necessity, and that necessity is
right.
I've got 2,500 hours on my combine. I've got 7,000 hours on my 4-wheel drive. I've got, you just run down the list. And there's a lot of people listening to this that are saying like, well, I just bought a 7,000 hour tractor. That's different pieces of equipment kind of flow to different parts of the customer base. And I think that's where that lines of delineation I've talked about before, where, you have the new buyer that buys the new, you got the first trade guy that's buying that first trade in. You got so on and so forth all the way down the line. But those lines are being...
segments are going through the same thing, because the guy that just bought the 7,000 hour tractor, he's a 10 to 15 hour at home. That's why he bought the 7, But even down in his category, it's been huge changes. I think that's your point.
Right.
It doesn't matter what segment you're in; it's all affected.
Also, to that same point is if you go back to 2009, 10, and 11, and 12, and 13, and look at those time frames, there were a lot of guys that were coming to the table and buying a brand new combine, and just a one-off new machine,
right?
And I think those customer segments have become, those walls have become very thick and very high around them, because you start looking at some of these. I mean, not every operation can afford a $500,000 combine, right? Not every operation can afford a $350,000 used combine either. You know what I mean? So it's you start, or a $500,000 used 4-wheel drive, or $400,000 used drive, or $375,000, $400,000 used row crop tractor. I mean, there's like all these big numbers are getting thrown out there, and people, and there's not a short line of people to buy them either, right? There's a long line of people out there looking to buy stuff,
right?
But it's the people that are looking to buy stuff. They're looking to buy a used piece of equipment. I haven't had too many conversations with guys where they're like, "Well, if I can't get a used one, I just go ahead and get a new one." No one said that to me. No, I don't hear that being said, right? They're saying, "I need it. Go find me a used one that's got the similar setup, the similar hours."
Well, that's because they know, my God, the used one's already 400. The new one's got to be 6. No way on earth.
Right, and that's my point. So I mean, yeah, and that's my point. It's that knowing what that line of people, what that line of customers, like, you bought a new one, who you taking the first one to, who you taking the second one to, who you taking the third one to, all the way through those trade cycles. And that washout cycle, I mean, that's something that people talked about, and we hear people talk about it all the time. But I can't tell you that it's been that heavily invested in over the last couple of years, last 10 years, like it was, the previous 10 years before that. If you go back to 1995 to 2005, there was a pretty realistic, Ted likes, Joe's trade in, so his trade is going to go, or his new one. When Joe trades something, Ted loves that. Ted always lines up to get Joe's trade in, and that kind of stuff. And not to say that hadn't happened, since then, but it just seemed like the stories and conversations I've had with people who've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, they always had guy that was, not always, but they always knew that. Whenever Joe traded in his new tractor that he ran for 2 or 3 years, that Ted was going to buy that,
Right, exactly.
And Bill was going to buy Ted's trade in. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of knew that, right?
And all three of them bought new in 10, 11, and 12 and screwed the whole thing up.
Yeah, a lot of that. But so I think as you look at some of this stuff and you're looking at the way things are priced, to me, I got to say that I have. My real big concern is how soon and how fast does that new where's that new got to fall in for that first generation used buyer to buy that piece of equipment and not compare it to a new one if they're in that, if the new is readily available.
Right.
Obviously, right now it doesn't matter because there's no new to be had, right? If it's someone,
or used,
but you have a better shot of getting something used than you do new right now. So it's a weird dynamic, and I think that what's the word, like the proliferation of how these machines are going to start going across out of the factory faster is going to have a bigger impact on where that used value falls into and how fast it goes backwards.
Hit us with that word one more time.
Proliferation.
Very nice.
That
today's vocabulary word, children, is proliferation. Right. We don't talk about machinery, damn it.
Dude. I mean, what are the conversations you're having with guys about this when you talk to them on the phone?
Basically, it's almost like it doesn't matter who you talk to, whether it's, more of the dealer principal type guy, the used guy, wholesaler, farmer. I mean, everybody's just like, what on earth? It's just a wild ride, and just hang on, man. Nobody's got anything that they can let go because everything's short. Mm-hmm. So it's just it's kind of a beat your head against the wall a hell of a lot, and then every once in a while you knock a brick loose, and then that brick is worth $11 billion.
Sure.
And then you just keep doing it. So,
has anyone talked to you? I mean, has anyone said anything about what's it look like when this is over?
Not like they should be, honestly. I mean, there's not a lot of. I think last week is the first time I've had anybody mention anything about when the dust settles.
When the dust settles, I mean, it's like, the dust settles after someone dumps a 5 cubic yard bucket of dirt on your head. That's when the dust settles. That's what that's going to be like.
It's already here. You just can't see it all real clearly yet, but it's here. That's why the dust is here.
But I think the difference, like I said a million times here, the difference between this marketplace and other marketplaces that we've got to fill back up the inventory line so much.
There's nothing. It's a both side issue, which it's never been.
Right. And I think that's where the saving grace is right now for the situation that we're heading into. Right. Is that we don't have a lot of used equipment to sell into, right?
You should have, given the nature of the beast and how much backfill it is going to take, you should be able to see it very clearly, very open in front of you, and be able to properly adjust and not have any issues. I mean, everybody got to getting pissed off at your cousin playing Super Nintendo. Everybody just got to hit reset. Okay, we all got to hit reset, start over. There's no reason for anybody to have problems now.
Right.
Except choppers.
I mean, the best analogy I've thought about in my head is, out here where we live at, if you drive by the same pasture every day and there's nothing out there but just rolling grassland, right? And out in the middle on top of this hill, you don't see a cedar tree, you see a cottonwood tree sitting up there on the hill. And then you come back tomorrow and you see another cottonwood tree sitting on top of that hill. And you come back the next day. On the third day, you come back and you see the third cottonwood tree sitting up there. And you're like, hold on a second. When did these cottonwood trees come up out here? When did they start seeing these cottonwoods pop up out here like this? That to me is the same thing. Like, you're looking out your window and you see, 2 balers, and then next thing you got a combine sitting there, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, we have a used row crop tractor sitting out here. When did that happen? And it's still here. I think that's when you obviously need to have a lot better control of your inventory than just like, oh look, I didn't realize we had a used. And I've done that before where I'm like, I didn't realize we had a used row crop tractor right now. I mean, look, where'd that come from?
I look through inventory all day, every day, and I'll be like, what? What is that?
Yeah. And I think that's when you see that second or third, 1-year-old, 500-hour row crop tractor sitting out there on the line, and you're going. Then that's when you start having that conversation with yourself, and you're like, "Holy crap, we've got inventory now."
Right.
Now we have to start managing inventory again. Like, holy crap, man, what are we doing?
Yeah, but just the fact that it's sitting there, I mean, it's got to get let the clock start ticking on it, then get worried.
But my point is, you have
just
not one, not two, but you have 3.
Eventually, we're going to have the time where it doesn't sell in 90 minutes.
Right.
It sells within like 6 months, which is totally fine.
Right. But that's
not the state of panic that we're all in, but that's going to be, and maybe that's how it starts. It'll be like a backwards situation.
Well, I think the first situation that I'm going to pay attention to is when you start looking through inventory and you have 3 used row crop tractors sitting there, and you go pull up quote, you go pull up all these different things. You start looking through all the Salesforce and all these different things that we got tools to go track who's doing what with what, and you don't see anything on them, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is uncharted territory. I mean, it's not, but if it'll feel like it, you know what I mean? Like it'll be like, oh,
Right.
whoa, it's not windy today. What are we supposed to do?
Is it 2018? What in the hell?
So I think that's where I'm. That's some like leading indicators to me when I start seeing those kind of things. And then obviously the big thing is to start watching those kind of machines get sold. Obviously, combines are going to get sold first at auction. That happens all the time, right? That's not. They're going to go get beat up for 3 years before anything else shows up on the auction block. Then all of a sudden, you start seeing some four-wheel drives show up and a sprayer or two, and then you got a row crop tractor or two, and it starts all over again. And I think that starts in 25, 20.
I think you'll have a sprayer problem. I think that'll be second to combines. There's been a lot of sprayer business the last few years, a lot. And I think at some point that's all going to catch up, and that'll probably be about the time that does that as well. So,
but it'll be interesting because, like I said earlier, this is the first time we're selling into no inventory. And how long is it going to take to catch up? But, when do interest rates start playing into? I was going to buy that, but now it's cost me 7% interest to is what I'm looking at now, and of course we got a long ways to go before we get there. But that being said, I mean, what happens when that starts coming down the line?
And if you think about it, we've been in this business. I've been in this business for 20 years, and I have never ever dealt over 20 years in this business now, and. And I have never, ever had interest be an issue in that entire 20 years.
Yep.
It's always been under 5. Like, it gets to 4, and guys are like, man, I don't know. And I'm like, shit, dude. It's 4.
Right.
Like, we're not going to be in like, well, I suppose 2%, I guess we can make that work. Like that, it wasn't going to be there forever,
right.
And
I also think it's a point of reference because up until 2008, I mean, interest rates, when I first started doing this in 2006, 2007, having 5.5% or 6% interest was a pretty common thing. That wasn't a big deal. And, you spend 15 years at pretty much 0% interest. Guys were fighting over who could do 0% interest the longest in tractor house ads. It's just
right, yeah.
And it was
0 for 10 years.
Yeah, it was one of those things. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting situation, and seeing how that dust settles when you start looking at who's the first buyer and where they coming in at, who's the second buyer and where they're coming in at, who's the third buyer and where they're coming in at, and then what are you going to do with the fourth and the fifth and so on and so forth. I think that cut off between the third trade and taking it to the fourth guy is going to start getting harder and harder and harder as things progress down the line. For sure. So, all right, I feel like it's a good place to stop. Aaron, if folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what it is that you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
Smoke signal.
Okay.
Homing pigeon, and it'd be carrier pigeon. I screwed it all up.
Yeah,
that's what you get. That's what you get.
Carrier pigeon.
Very active on the Twitterverse from time to time at Aaron Fintel, on the Facebook, Aaron Fintel. Call me, text me, 308-760-1193.
Right on. And I'm Casey Seymour. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you find the latest editions of the Moving Iron Podcast. Also, any blogs get posted there as well. Go to MovingIronLLC.com for the entire library of the Moving Iron Podcast. All the blogs are posted there. And you get all the information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up in Nashville, Tennessee. That's September 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Hilton downtown Nashville. If you're a dealer of any kind, if you dealing only used equipment, come. If you are a mainline manufacturer, dealers, come. If you are anyone that messes with used equipment or talks to people about used equipment, you should probably come to this thing. So check it out. Dealers from across the country, Canadian dealers, when they're not locked in their country because of COVID, they come. You got some people from Europe, again, when they can travel, they come as well. So check it out. I think it's well worth your time. Been doing it since 2013. Aaron's been to all of them, and there's a good camaraderie that comes from that. Plus, you get to put a lot of faces with names. So, what's one of the biggest takeaways you get from that every year, Aaron?
Well, it's absolutely the networking, right. And you don't talk much business at all whatsoever when you're there. I never do anyway. It's, this guy you call, text, and email the other 362 days of a year. Now you see him. You're in the same room as him, and, you're sitting by him at meetings and shooting the shit and just getting to know people and how they work and what they're after and what they're about. I mean, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to get away from to take away from the programming as well.
Right on. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's one thing too, is like you get the occasional, what are you guys doing with combines? What are you guys doing with full drives? What happens with, this, that, and other thing? How do you handle these situations? You get a little bit of that, but it is a lot of just getting to know everybody and networking and taking a few things away from the speakers that come. So highly recommend that you check that out. Building relationships. Fostering relationships across manufacturer lines. If you're still interested, if you want to come to that, go to MovingIronLLC.com. Go to the Moving Iron Summit tab. Check that out. All the information is there. If you need more information, send me an email at MovingIronPodcast@MovingIronPodcast.com, and I will get that to you. So I got a YouTube channel as well. Check that out. Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Check that out. And also got a LinkedIn page. Check that out as well. So with that, I am Casey Seymour with Aaron Fennell. Let's go move some iron, folks. I can't believe I just said it like that. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out. Axon Tire is going to have more tips, tricks, and client advice throughout the year and in September at the Moving Iron Summit in Nashville. If you're looking to sign up for the event, please head over to MovingIronLLC.com. We hope to see you there. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransitinc.com for all of your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. And no matter how you buy ag equipment from a dealer, auction, or a private party, AgDirect can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.